There we go. Wow. There we go, Dano. Good start to the morning. Check this baby out. Nice fat little bass. There's gonna be a lot more where this came from today. Dan and I are out here at the crack of dawn fishing these beautiful largemouth bass. And today we're gonna talk about tools of the trade. I'm in my boat right now, and this is essentially my office. And the idea with fishing equipment really is the same as a carpenter's toolbox. You don't use a wrench to pound nails, right? So today, Dan Johnston from St. Croix Rods and I are gonna go through some of the ins and outs of the equipment, particularly rods, we use in bass fishing today. This is gonna be fun, Dan.
Closed captioning is provided by Smooth Moves, adjustable boat seat suspensions for a smoother ride.
Got him? Yeah, oh, you got the drag backed up. Come on. Oh, he came unpinned. The drag was backed all the way up. Oh, it was a brand new reel. I haven't set it up yet. Dude.
Note to self, tighten drag with braid when you're flipping and pitching.
You'll notice it's early in the morning right now, and we're out here right at the crack of dawn. And midsummer, especially when you get that real stable weather where it's just sunny, clear, 80 every day, that's the time of year when, you know, that midday bite can really be challenging and tough. So taking advantage of these low light opportunities are big. You know, you get a gray day, that's usually when the fish are biting. You get some overcast, and then of course, early in the morning and late in the day are certainly the prime times to be out on the water. So if you've got a shot to be out early, I strongly recommend doing it because it just ups your odds.
There we go.
Got him. That's where the school is.
Come on, buddy. Man, I tell you, there's something about the leverage of a rod of this length that's just different. And it's fun, especially when you get a stud,
Doubles.
a stud like this.
Doubles. Oh, what do we got? Oh, just a couple fours.
What I'm talking about.
They're bigger bass, and should be probably be flipping with the stick. So look at that, huh? It's a sweet way to start the morning. We got a pair of them. That is really fun in those long sticks.
Man, I tell you, what's the first thing I noticed, first time I ever used these long rods, Jer, is you're into them right now. It's like literally 2 foot of hook set sweep, and it picks up so much line that it's like, it almost, your elbow is just like, you're right there,
It's
especially
amazing.
with braid. It's awesome. It's different, but it's really cool. Wow, what a stud. It's amazing with these longer rods when your tip is where it's at related to a 7-footer. What I mean by longer, this thing's 8 foot 11 inches long, and this is new territory for both of us. And the first thing we notice, we can keep our tip up and we're at a much better angle of attack with that line. And not only are you gonna hang up less, but the hook set is very short and compact, and once you get a fish pinned, you have tremendous control over them. I mean, much more so certainly than with a 6.5 foot rod, but that's the first thing I noticed with these really long rods is the advantage we get when we get a fish hooked up and our ability to present ourselves in cover, especially closer to targets. There we go.
There you go.
Oh, it's fun. Look at that. You can steer them.
You just whoop them.
Come to the store with it. Come on, buddy. What a riot.
Flipping in.
What a riot. Better than coffee. How much fun is that? Boy, they're healthy too. Midsummer bass fishing, and one thing that it's funny, you can either get whooped or you can get multiples off one spot. It's like they wolf pack up, and whether they're gathering up, ready for a fall feed up, what it is, I don't know, but it's an absolute riot.
There we go, Dan, under the boat. It is just amazing. You know, you use your higher geared reels to help you pick up line, but these rods, this is an 8 foot 11 inch rod, and I can pick up just an enormous amount of line with the rod too. It takes a little getting used to, because I mean, you look at it, you lift the rod a little bit and it just moves the bait a long distance. But fishing in heavy cover, it is really nice because of the angle of the lines going into the cover. So with this longer rod, you're able to keep that line vertical. And right now we're not actually punching or flipping or pitching, we're actually making casts to an edge where the cover becomes a little more sparse. So many advantages, and you can really whoop them on it too.
This segment is brought to you by Gill Technical Fishing Gear.
There we go. Jeez, you just whoop on them. It's unbelievable. You just kick their butt. We're on them. You know, the one thing I love about summer is the diversity of ways you can catch fish. You know, you can get, we'll run into fish today, I know it. We'll find fish in cattails. We'll find fish in lily pads. We'll find fish on deeper rocks. We'll find fish in, you know, that 10-foot heavy weed stuff. So the fish are really everywhere, and it makes it really fun. And one of the best presentations, if you're fishing around cover, is of course, this is a Punchin rig. This is one of the best tools there is. It's really, in my opinion, replaced the jig. I used to fish a jig all summer long.
There we
I'm
go.
not saying Dan's got a big one. Jig isn't great, but this sure works good too. Oh, it's just another 4-pounder, Dan.
Well, I rudely interrupted you, Jer, and you were doing so well. I think I got something snagged in the face. Oh, wow, that's cool. Look at that stud.
Jeez, you can flip those big fish in the boat like that.
Oh, man. And I tell you what Jer was talking about, and it's such a great point, this Punchin rig that he has set up so well. Look at that. Boy, you are strong. Man alive. What a gorgeous fish. Just awesome. What he's talking about, and what's really critical here, and it's a good time to show it because my rig is messed up because that stud just chewed it for breakfast, but see how he's got this snelled? And it's so critical because when you get a tungsten weight in front of it, this is so important. When I push on this sinker, see how that hook cams up? See how it's flat and now it cammed up? That's critical, and he has this tied right. If it was reversed and it cammed away, we'd hook up much fewer fish. This really works in our favor. So when we rig this Punchin rig up, make sure you snell it. Get that knot behind that hook eye. Number one, you don't pound your knot with your tungsten, but also it cams that hook into that fish when you set the hooks. It's more of a sweep set. So Jerry, you did me right, man. You set me up perfect.
All right. There should be a mat out in front here. There generally is. The Humminbird units, we've got the Helix Gen 2, come with a feature called Auto Chart Live, which allows you to create your own lake maps. But in addition to creating contour lines on the lake so you know how deep it is, there are some overlay options, and a very useful one for Dan and I today, this lake isn't mapped so you can see I'm driving around, is the vegetation overlay. So if you take a look here, you'll see the green spots. Those are where it's those dense mats that we're flipping, and this is a really cool spot here because when I drove over it I noticed there's rocks in between. So we've got 2 weed beds with a deep rock saddle in between those. So what a really cool feature to have, to be able to identify where the weeds are and where they're not actually, because in a lot of cases where those weeds aren't, it makes a great edge, and often it's hard bottom, and this time of year the fish can be there. So if you've got a unit that does Auto Chart Live, it does more than just record depth contours. You can overlay vegetation and also the bottom hardness. There's one. Oh, Jared. Get in there, Dan. Oh, that is sweet. It's amazing how you can pick up line so quickly with that stick, huh? This is what we're averaging this morning, pretty much. It's a good average, huh? I love those. And now we're starting to get into a little heavier cover. You can see over here we've got some dense mats, and what you see a lot of times in low light conditions, for example, if it was a gray overcast day, you'd find a lot of the fish on the edge. And right now as the sun starts to make its way up into the sky, you'll see the fish move from that edge and they'll start pushing into that thick cover when it's bright and sunny, and that's when we'll have to go in with the heavier weights and crack on them. But right now it's kind of right on that edge. So,
you know, one of the most incredible features in really bass fishing for sure for me, but a lot of fishing with Minn Kota spot lock, and for a lot of reasons. Number one, if we're sitting on a point and we want to be low maintenance, completely hands and feet free and just fish, we can just lock that thing in. It's an it's an anchor. It holds you. But equally as important, let's say you get one hooked up, you want to land it, you want to unhook it, you want to re-rig, and how many times have we done that? And then we turn around and we're 60 yards down breeze, and what an unbelievable feature. If you haven't used it, try it, because it's a game changer, no doubt.
There's one. There we go. Nice. Oh, another big boy, Dan.
Nice.
Jeez, they're just awesome.
The Edge is presented by these and other fine sponsors.
We're just really catching a bunch of these babies this morning. Pretty sweet, huh? And what Dan and I are doing, most people in the North Country here would call it flipping, but it's really not flipping. There's a few techniques that really get used in this heavy cover situation. It's flipping, of course, it's punching, and it's pitching. So let's explain the differences between these. And Mr. Dan back there is a true expert in this matter.
Flipping, if you notice on a flipping rod, the stripper guide's going to be farther away from the reel, the first guide wheel. And the reason why is we have a predetermined amount of line out, very short quarter. I'm going to measure my line like this in my opposing hand. I'm just going to drop my tip, and I'm just going to put that measured amount of line out. And I'm fishing a very short distance. That's a flip. A pitch, on the other hand, is where we don't fish a measured amount of line predetermined. We actually let line out, but it's still a short distance presentation. I do it with one hand only. A lot of people will pitch with their right hand, they'll hold the bait with their left hand, and they'll come and release it and let line out. A lot of us will just leave it alone with our left hand. I just drop the tip, raise the tip, and then I'm right here in a hook setting position. So a pitch, they're both short quarter combat situations. A pitch, we let line out. A flip is a predetermined amount of line for a real short distance. Both are very effective. Both require a relatively long rod, and both allow you to use these punching and flipping baits really, really well.
Now when it comes to punching, you can really either use the flipping or the pitching technique, and sometimes you'll use a technique. Let's say we get into out here, sometimes we'll get into curly leaf pondweed mats up so thick hardly anything will go through it, and you'll actually go to a really heavy weight like 1.5 ounces, and those fish can get back up there, and it might blow onto a point like this where it's 12 feet underneath and it's clean, but to get through it you actually have to take the bait, and I'll take it and I'll actually put it way up in the air so the bait will fall through. You're not making those necessarily real target casts and just kind of gently letting the bait into the water. You have to get some speed into the bait to make it penetrate. Dan just stuck a huge one behind me. But that's really the deal with punching. Big boy?
They're all
big boys?
They're all big in my book, Jer. Oh, that's so much fun.
I just am blown away. You can flip those giant ones in on a stick.
It's just awesome. And to Jer's point, thing about a lot of punching rods have it's St. Croix. I'm going to walk you through something real quick here that's, let this guy go. Good morning to you. Look at the sunshine off you. What a gorgeous fish. Boy, are they healthy. You need to come play football for the University of Iowa. You look like a little linebacker. Okay, St. Croix, most of our flipping sticks are a heavy power. Power is how much it takes to load the whole rod with a fast action. In other words, where does the rod bend along the blank? Fast, okay? It's gonna be right about here. Punching rods a lot of times are moderate action. And the reason why is we have this tungsten a lot of times with punching, and those fish will lock down on that bait, and if we jerk and that rod's too stiff, this can pop right out of them. It's amazing. So St. Croix slows that tip down just a little bit to allow that bait to set in that fish's mouth. It settles in before we sweep, and it makes a big difference. A lot of times if we're punching, like Jer was talking about, and we have a rod that's too stiff, we can miss fish on the hook set. And it's incredible because you wouldn't think that'd be the case, but you'll see a lot of rod companies when they're using punching rods, they'll It'll be heavy power with a moderate action. Bends a little bit further down into the rod, especially with braid.
You know, the other, of course, critical part of this setup is the reel that you're using. There's a couple things when it comes to the reel. First is gear ratio. I like fast reels for this because there's a lot of slack in your presentation. So you want to be able to pick up slack quickly. So I like to use an 8-to-1. Personally, that's what I like. 7-3-to-1 or something like that is good as well. But, you know, super fast reel is a big deal. And then the spool control. There's two ways to control your spool. You've got your main tension dial, and then there's typically like a magnetic brake. So this is like a coarse tune. This is a fine tune with the magnetic brake. You want to be able to let the line flow out real smoothly. You don't want a lot of tension on the line. And what Daiwa's done with this SV spool, super free versatile, is they've got brakes in here to pretty much eliminate backlashing. So if you're getting into the slackline presentation, you want to get good at it, this reel can do a lot to help you do it. This is the Tatula SV. So this is just a sweet reel for being able to make those casts. You're not getting the overrun, the reels aren't blowing up on you, and it's a really big part of the system. You want everything nice and light and no backlash. See that? That thing never backlashes.
Now, punching is, in my experience, 100% braid. It's a vegetation technique. We're trying to get straight down. We need tremendous sensitivity, and most importantly, we want absolutely no stretch at all when we set the hooks. A lot of times we're bringing up a pound of weeds. So with line, this is Suffix 832 on this Punchin rib we have hooked up, and it's absolutely perfect.
And then of course I select the pound test based on the type of cover you're fishing. If I'm fishing the real heavy, you know, like the hard stem bulrush in the background here and pads, that stuff's really tough. I like going in there with 50 pound. That seems like that's the line you want. Now when you get into the softer cover, the coontail, the cabbage, the milfoil, I like 30 or 40 in there. So if I was gonna tell somebody, I'm just getting into this thing, I wanna get spooled up with some good braid, I'd pick 40 pound Suffix 832 in the green color, and you can pretty much do everything. It's not perfect for the heavy stuff, it's not perfect for the deep stuff, but it's an all around very, very versatile braid.
The Edge is presented by these and other fine sponsors.
All right, so the punching system is really simple. It's essentially hook, line, and sinker, but it is specialized gear. So the idea with it is you want to keep the sinker and the hook basically in one compact package. So when you start to tie this up, you'll start with a little stop. This is a little VMC sinker stop here. Slide your line through the little wire, you pull that on. Next, you add the flipping weight, which is very specialized. Usually we're fishing between 1/2 ounce to 1.5 ounces, but a go-to size for me is 3/4 ounce tungsten is money. From there, I like to usually add a little bead to make a little noise in between the hook and the sinker there, and then you've just got your hooks. A couple styles of hooks that guys like to use. This is the VMC Flippin hook. A traditional Flippin hook works absolutely great, but you can also use the traditional EWG, the extra wide gap. These are both VMCs, and it's really a matter of personal preference, which one of those two you like. You can also accessorize the deal if you want. You can add a little skirt into the mix to make it look more like a jig. And on the back end, it's a big piece of plastic, and the denser the cover, generally speaking, the less appendages you want hanging off the bait. You want something that doesn't get caught in the cover, but I like a big profile in this dark water. This is the Big Bite Rojas Fighting Frog. That's just a dynamite bait for this type of system. So really that's all there is. A couple big hooks, a weight, a stop, and away you go. Got him. Yep. Stuck him that time.
Hi, buddy. That was just awesome. I tell you what, man, there is nothing like getting bit right there because there's nowhere to go, and it's mono-y-mono, and it's braid, and it's a long rod, and you got everything going on to almost hurt your elbow, and I absolutely love it. That was so cool.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for joining us again on the closings. It's really a blessing to me to hear some of the things that you've shared with me at the office and on the road, talking about different things, how the hand of God has touched you and influenced you and people in your life. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, one thing I wanted to talk about, I guess, is faith. A lot of people think of faith, they think of religious terms. They think you're a Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, et cetera, et cetera. When in actuality, what is faith according to the Bible?
Well, God's word is pretty simple. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah,
that's what faith is.
Yeah, and growing up, I was never bashful about my faith. I believe Jesus was a man, died for my sins, rose again, and is sitting at the right hand of the Father right now. I believe that like an arrow. And I guess that makes me a Christian. That's my faith. And growing up, I was never bashful about that. All of my friends knew where I stood, and many of them had different beliefs. Some were agnostic and some were atheists. And I found it interesting throughout the years, many of those people came to know the Lord the way that I do. And I planted a seed with them a long time ago, and I was never going to change their mind back then, and they were never going to change mine. But for whatever reason, they came to know the Lord. And I found that interesting, that the Lord moves at certain times in people's lives for certain reasons. You know, and I'm sure you've experienced that. Seed
planting is a key thing. That's what we do on the show on the close. I feel really led to share experiences of what God's word is, how it played in my life, and we plant seeds, and a lot of them you get feedback many years later.
Yeah,
I've got feedback 30 years later, stuff that I didn't even know I said or did.
Exactly.
And it's a real blessing. Sometimes I read them in the feedback letters we get. But one thing for sure, God's word is clear as a bell that he is moved by faith. That's what moves God. Faith. It's not circumstances, it's not your good deeds, all of these things. It comes from the heart, and that happens in many different ways. It's a one-on-one relationship with the Father through Jesus. That's what this word is about, and everything that moves him is faith-driven. Again, what is faith according to the word of God? It's real simple. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You and I right now are planting seeds. Hopefully we get some feedback from you on what we just shared, and I'm sure we probably will. That's our job, seed planters, Dano. Hey, from all of us here at The Edge, you have a good, safe fishing season. We'll see you on the water. Thanks again for being with us, Dan.